Amen. Amen. Okay. So when we left off last week, we had chapter 16. So Abram would have been about 86.
I believe that's what you said.
That would have made Sarai 76. 86 is the new 46. And so we're thinking maybe 10 or 15 years in. And at least Sarai's getting nervous. Her time's running out. I think we kind of talked about it's hard for us to understand and capture the pressure that Sarai was under. A lot of pressure. Your job's to have children, and you're cursed by God if you don't have them. And so, Sarai came with an idea that was not crazy. That was actually stipulated in some marriage contracts that if the wife could not produce a child, that the husband was okay to go out and get a surrogate of some kind, because your identity, you didn't find your identity in being an individual, but you found it through family, you found it through community, and to produce the name, to keep the name going, you needed children. So they bring in Hagar, the servant. We don't know how old Hagar was, right?
Yeah, that's one thing I noticed you did not
Yeah.
determine.
Yeah. And we would assume maybe younger.
She was certainly of childbearing age, obviously.
Yeah, nice. And that's exactly what Sarah, what she would have thought. So, and it happened. And of course we read all through that, and then of course then when Hagar started to look down upon Sarai loses her mind, points a finger at Abram, says, "You blew it. Fix this or die," kind of. And so Abram did what any man does who's got two women and he's afraid of them both. Just basically says, "She's your servant, do whatever you want." So we kind of know how Abram certainly, he was too passive, I think, all the way through this, right? And then Sarai kind of was trying to take control, and she just made a mess out of things. Chased off Hagar. But then God came to her rescue. Told her to go back. She's going to have a son, and he's going to be a father of 12 princes, right? Ishmael.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
12 princes and
Yeah.
12 tribes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in chapter 17, right, so that was at 86, so 13 years later, at 99, God comes to Abram and tells him that, right, we're changing your name to Abraham. You're going to be a father of many nations. And Sarai's name will be changed to Sarah, and he was then to circumcise everybody in his household. They were to come under as a sign of the covenant was to be circumcised. And
So that was everyone, whether they were blood relatives or not.
yes,
So they were still under the covenant,
They
even
were.
if they weren't blood relatives.
right. Yep, they were under the protection of the covenant. They weren't to be excluded. That's exactly right. And we talked about too, there was no well, we'll let them grow up and make their own choice. No, you get circumcised and you get marked. And so then we talk, well, what happens to the lady? Ladies don't get circumcised, obviously. Well, they're under the covenant protection of the male who's circumcised. Right?
Some cultures there is that
Yeah,
female circumcision still.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, we're not going to talk about that, though.
Okay.
Anyway, so now we're at chapter 18, because God has now told, Abraham, now, you're going to have a son from your loins. And of course, Abraham wants Ishmael. He's just laughing. He laughed at the whole thing. I mean, I'm now 99 years old. And by the way, just keep that in mind, because that's why Israel sees themselves as a supernatural nation, right? Because Abraham and Sarah were past the years of bearing children. So only God can do that. That's how they looked at it. And anyway, so we pick up at chapter 18, okay? And it says, and I'll read to verse 8. And the Lord appeared to him, that being Abraham, by the oaks of Mamre, as he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day. He lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, and bowed himself to the earth and said, O Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree, while I bring a morsel of bread, that you may refresh yourselves. And after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant. So they said, Do as you have said. And Abraham went quickly into the tent to Sarah, and said, Quick, 3 seahs of fine flour, knead it, and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd, and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to a young man, who prepared it quickly. Then he took curds and milk, and the calf that he had prepared, and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree while they ate. So why are we getting a description of this? What's the big deal? Why would the writer want us to know about this? I mean, he could have cut some of this out. In other words, I would think the Lord coming, yes, but
Well, they were getting ready to go down to Sodom and Gomorrah.
spoiler alert.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they had, I guess, a couple of reasons to be there, to tell Abraham that Sarah was going to have a child, and
Yeah.
to take care of the Sodom, because God knew that Abraham was going to intervene for Lot. So initially, it kind of almost, you wonder, did he understand that it was the Lord coming?
Yeah.
Because it's a small L on mine.
Right.
So-
We'll hit that. But what I mean is, like, why the food? In other words, he didn't have to, like, describe the whole, because, okay, so first of all, the three seahs, is that what it is? Can't find it.
Yeah, 3 said,
That's 36 pounds.
there's a lot of flour. A lot.
And it was probably, and the barley flour so it was probably wheat flour. So it was like that would be like a month's supply for a family, right? He breaks that out. And I get to kick it quick. Grab a calf. I mean, Sarah, that'd take a
I
long
know,
time.
It's like, how fast did they do this?
Yeah. I imagine it took all day. You got to kill the calf, you got to eat it,
Gotta cook it.
cook it.
Gotta drink blood.
And you know, and the meat is not necessarily a staple. So what we're seeing here with Abraham is he's going all out. He's going all out. That's one.
Well, I think he knows it, one of them's God, because he's seen him in the past.
Well, okay, so that's the interesting thing. So it's good that you picked that up. So he basically lets them eat, and he, like a servant, he just kind of watches them, and they're just chowing. Now, maybe remember we read what it was in chapter 14 that Abraham had 318 trained men. So maybe also was eating there with some of his men too. 'Cause, I mean, that's a lot of bread. That's 36 pounds.
For 3 people.
60 loaves. Probably like 60 loaves. That's a lot. But what we are seeing, of course, now this is something very common but very important, is hospitality. We're seeing what kind of a man Abraham is. He's very hospitable. And back then, you're wandering around in the desert. It isn't like, oh, there's an inn up there.
Or
The
there's
desert
a
inn.
restaurant around the corner.
No, and so you really depended on people to take you in and, wash your feet, give you food, a place to rest. And Abraham is proving himself to be quite the host. And if you remember in the book of Hebrews, and don't be afraid to show hospitality.
To strangers.
For by it some have entertained angels unaware. You think that's still a good practice for us today?
Yes.
Being hospitable, bringing people in, kind of like the Thomasons used to do, always bringing people in, feeding them. Right? Yeah, I think it'd be a good thing to get back to. Did I ever tell you the reason why? The thing that made me that I knew when Linda did this is when I said I am going to sign her to a lifetime contract. You know what it was? She invited me over for dinner. I had never had a girl do that before. She did that. I'm like, okay. I was on cloud 9 for the whole week. I think we had chicken and potatoes. It did not matter. She could have gave me slop. It was fine. It was awesome. So,
And that's what I fixed for Jim the first night I invited
Yeah.
him over for dinner, chicken.
but okay, so very hospitable. Now the next question. So, okay, it's the Lord and two people. Who do you think those two people are, first of all? We can identify them.
Angels.
If you look over at chapter 19, verse 1, it tells us, right? Two angels. Which again, remember, when we see angels, we're instinctively thinking divine messengers. But if the word means messenger, theoretically it could be human messengers. But since the first one is the Lord, right? It's pretty clear, I think they're divine messengers.
But didn't these same angels, aren't they the ones that got surrounded at Sodom and Gomorrah?
Yes.
So we know that was their angels.
Yes, we do. Yet, though, interestingly enough, the angels looked like men. And it makes you wonder. We normally, when we think of it, these divine beings, we think, well, they're like immaterial spirits, like, excuse me, and so then they must be like shape-shifting and making themselves into humans, or either that, or is this the way that, when you think about the Bible, think every time you see angels, I mean, we clearly sometimes see some that are very bright, which the brightness, like Jesus in Mount Transfiguration, the brightness, it's almost like when you get really close to the holy, get right. But I guess what I'm getting at, we only know when we see angels, for the most part, they look like us.
Well,
I could think.
maybe the angels that are sent to give us messages and to speak with us look like us. But we know like the cherubim and the seraphim don't look like us,
Yeah.
right? Because they have wings
Yeah.
and they have, different
Yeah.
faces.
Yeah.
So maybe it's the ones who are dealing with us that look like us.
They're different classes of beings.
I wonder, like, when he first looked up and saw him and he ran out to them, did he know immediately? That this is the
That's the
Lord?
big question. So, like, because in other words, now my Bible has capital L, but that is a interpreter's choice. In other words, I think their Bible in it says a lowercase l, which would be more like sir. Now, I was reading a note on this, and it talked about the spelling in the Hebrew is a little bit different than for sirs, which would imply. I mean, I think clearly at some point, we know when we get towards the end, we get down to the bargaining part, by that time Abraham has figured out this is the Lord. So we don't know if it's like, so did he figure it out later, or did he know right away something was special about him?
But mine has a big L.
Yeah, mine does too.
Yeah.
Not just-
I think also too the fact that he just looked up and there they were. They
Yeah,
were
he
standing
didn't see them
opposite
coming.
him. It's not like he saw them coming from a long distance. It was almost like they just kind of appeared.
I'll give you one other reason why I think he knew too. Because he's seen him before.
Yeah,
The Lord's appeared to.
that's what she said.
Who said that? You
I
did?
said that.
Yeah.
You stole my thunder? Okay, you get the credit. Okay. Lisa McClanahan gets the credit. She nailed. That was actually, yeah, it's good observation. Seen him before, right? So he sees him coming, and holy cow, right? But then that's interesting too, is that he, going with that, then Abraham instinctively, though, treats him like, well, you need some food, you're hungry. And the Lord eats. And these divine messengers eat. Kind of interesting, isn't it?
And he bows down to the ground. Does he do that for all strangers that come?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Maybe something in him said something's different about these people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, why would he? You know.
Right.
I don't know.
I
Sometimes your intuition. Is
I think
not
I think
really-
you're right. I think he definitely know. And you know, you get back to the hospitality. So this was the idea behind sacrifice. When we hear sacrifices, we think in terms of something dying. But in reality, for the ancients, sacrifice meant meal. You had to obviously kill the animal to eat, but it was an eating, right? And so even the pagans, when you sacrifice, you were trying to make friends with the god. When you want to be kind, the way to be kind to your neighbor, the way to be kind to, of course, and that would extend to your God, is you would share a meal with them. A meal was like your way, I mean, that's how you lived. And to share your food, which was in short supply, right? That was big. You're sharing some of your livelihood with another person, and that was big. And so we're seeing this with the kind of person Abraham is he's very hospitable. We're going to see the same with Lot, too. Lot's the same way. And anyway, okay. And of course, Hebrews was kind of was commanding the church, right, to show hospitality when people come along. You know, nowadays we probably just now we just take them out to lunch somewhere. But around here it's a little different, though. Around here we still bring people to our house. But okay, so I think you're right, Lisa. I think, and I think y'all are right. I think he knew. I've met you before. I know who you are. And I suppose these other two must be your right-hand men. It's kind of interesting. No, we can go on further because you could also then, again, at some point, John makes it clear. We'll even read it later on in Numbers. Yeah, Numbers, that you're not supposed to be able to see the Lord face to face. You hear that? Can't see the Lord and live. But yet, he's looking at the Lord and living. We'll say it over and over again. And I think the Apostle John will allude that, because Jesus will say that. No one has seen God at any time. They're like, well, then who's Abraham looking at then? Well, I think he's looking at Jesus. Right? And I think that's what Jesus was saying. All the times, all the times that you were seeing God, you were seeing me. Whether it be in the bush. So then that makes me wonder, did Jesus look the same here as he did when he came?
Pre-incarnate Jesus. We don't know, do we?
that I know of.
No, I don't think it's that Bible was ever said at the pre.
Well, no one really testified to it because obviously
That's true.
the only one who could testify to it is Jesus because he's
We
going
can
to.
ask him someday.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah. Did you look to see? Well, actually, my hair was a little darker back then. But yeah, it was me. Okay. So verse 9. And this is where Monty brought this up. Sarah. I'll tell you what, she's getting herself into more trouble. They said to him, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" And he said, "She's in the tent." Now so I have this one commentary, and it's kind of more like background commentary. The guy who does this commentary, that's his thing. He's into the ancient culture. And again, so much you can never say for sure. But he does kind of circle the wagon a little bit around the fact that Sarah's not there. Why wouldn't Sarah be serving? She's somewhere else. She's in the tent. And then he kind of notes something. She's in the tent. It's almost like, well, I'm not sure what he was trying to get at, but it's almost like a euphemism. Like, okay, like, we'll say things like, "Oh, it's that time of the month. She's in the tent." Now, the thing is it'll say that she's past that age. I think he's implying that possibly she just started again, her period. And that's why she went into the tent, which would be kind of bizarre. In other words, implying that she's gonna be fertile again, right? But anyway, neither here nor there. It's just kind of, sometimes it is kind of weird, like, why? So where is Sarah, your wife? So like,
She could have been mad at God.
there could be a lot of other
She
things.
didn't want to come out.
Yeah.
She's like, well,
But what
That's kind of unhealthy. I don't. That's what they would do. An American girl would do that. But I don't think
Yeah.
I don't know.
we're not at women's lib.
Sarah
What?
have actually been serving? Wouldn't servants have been serving?
I think she would have been out there too. She was the one. She was the one up there doing the.
Fixed
Right.
it.
She did all the cutting up of the. Yeah.
She made the bread.
Nothing definite. I mean, whatever. They asked where she is though.
Yeah.
Where's that beautiful wife of yours?
Because she had an important role to start with.
And she's in the tent. I wish she would have said hiding, pouting. Of course, the Lord knew, right? The Lord said, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, shall have a son." And Sarah was listening at the tent door behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in years. The way of women had ceased to be with Sarah. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, "After I am worn out, and my Lord is old, shall I have pleasure?" And the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Shall I indeed bear a child now that I am old?' Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time I will return to you about this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son." But Sarah denied it, saying, "I did not laugh," for she was afraid. He said, "No, but you did laugh." No, what was your question last week? I forgot what it was. What were you pointing out last week?
Well, what my point was, Abraham already knew about this because this is the second time.
Okay, yes, yeah.
So this is the second time. So what I was thinking, and it kind of interesting that Abraham didn't go and tell Sarah already the news.
Yeah.
So she laughed, but if she already knew, she would have laughed. You know what I mean?
I get you. So you know what? Okay. Trump won. So we can trash on Sarah a little bit. Maybe he didn't want to tell Sarah because look at her attitude. So I'm not going to tell her that. She's just going to yap at me and scream.
Well, maybe also she didn't come out there because she didn't feel like it was a woman's place.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going back to what Monty said, like why, how come Abraham didn't tell Sarah, hey, guess what? I had a good talk today, hung out with the animals, talked with my servants. Oh, by the way, the Lord said you're going to be pregnant next year. He didn't, evidently, because she didn't know.
Yeah.
And then notice how, Abraham had a good laugh about it. He laughed. He thought, are you kidding me? Now, let's give Sarah a little bit of props here. Sarah does refer to Abraham as my Lord. He's not disrespecting him, but she's kind of like, are you kidding me? He's old. I'm old. And maybe as we talked about last week, we haven't been together in so long. What are you, right? Which, if that is true, then that commentary that I was reading, in other words, how do you send a message to Sarah that it's time that you get back together with your hubby? Start her cycle back up or something. I don't know. You lay the word about me. It's kind of weird, but yeah. I don't know.
Well, maybe the Lord gave her a desire that she hadn't had in a while.
And maybe that was why the Lord wanted to call her out, because I don't know, maybe this is why the laughing, because no, Sarah, don't be laughing here.
This is not
I'm
a
serious.
joke.
This is happening, and you got work to do, girlfriends. You need to get after it.
It's not a joke. This is for real.
Yeah.
I would have laughed.
And the Lord would have said, why did you laugh? And then you would have said, I didn't laugh. I was sneezing.
I would have been scared and you would have called me on it. I really would.
Yeah.
And that's how Sarah reacted.
Yeah.
But in my heart, I would have gone,
Yeah.
because it's hilarious, that's why.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. And we don't know why. It does, though, but to your point, Monty, that just makes all the more sense why the Lord showed up again. He's anticipating that, for whatever reason, Abraham's not going to tell her the first time. We're going to have to show up again and make sure, because isn't it interesting? They still going to have work to do. I'm assuming, because in other words, with Mary, when Mary asked, how is this going to happen? The Holy Spirit's going to overshadow you. Well, there's none of that here. So they're going to have to come together. Right? They got to make it happen. And so, okay. So that's the first bit of news. That's why the first. So they have a good meal. And that's kind of interesting in its own right, right? So Abraham's getting it right here. He's getting it right. He is showing hospitality.
He's eating a meal with his God.
Yeah. Which is really and that's kind of amazing in its own right.
Yeah.
Because in all other societies with the pagan, you didn't see the pagan deity. You just hoped. You hoped he liked your fajitas. Or she, if your local god was, and you just hoped that she was happy with it, and that it worked, and so that you could do your thing. But I actually sat down with him and two angels, and we had a good meal. Your God actually eats, which is remarkable. Yeah. Okay. And Sarah denied it, and I mean, even that's kind of interesting too. It's like, why does the author feel the need to tell us this little exchange? We could have just said, no, we could have had where the Lord comes and says this was going to happen, and then left it at that. But he records the fact that Sarah thought, other than maybe it could be to highlight that they both thought, this is crazy. How could this happen? Right?
We're still not believing.
Yeah. Okay. And the fact that when Sarah tried to get out of it and make a claim that she didn't laugh, oh yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You did laugh.
I heard
Okay.
you.
Okay. So here we go. Here's the next part. So then the men set out from there, and they looked down toward Sodom. So here's the other reason why they're coming. They got a couple of things they're going to do. Can you imagine, wouldn't it be left to listen to the Lord? Okay, we got some things we're going to do here. First, we're going to go. We're going to see Abraham, and we're going to get some food. We're going to get our feet washed. Great time, right? We're going to load the news on them. Make sure they get it. And then we're going to go out, check out Sodom. But and I think the Lord specifically wants to talk with Abraham about this. Sodom. Right? So first we're kind of learning something about hospitality. Hospitality is a big thing. It's a biblical thing. And I think this is something that me, definitely, more than maybe anybody else, I need to learn this more. Bringing people in, if it costs me a little bit, it should. Sacrifice, right? And bringing people in, feeding them. I know for some churches, that's one of their big ways to evangelize. Instead of having big events, they invite someone, a poor person, invite them over, and then love on them and then share them the good news. Something like that. I like that the idea is it's more intimate. When at the dinner table is usually when you're the most at ease. If you ever, like when you read the Gospels, you know something all Jesus teaching you, that's at the table. Right? Okay, so then the men set out from there, and they looked down towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to set them on their way. The Lord said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do? Seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I have chosen him that he may command his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice, so that the Lord may bring to Abraham what he has promised him." Then the Lord said, "Because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and their sin is very grave, I will go down to see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry that has come to me. And if not, I will know."
Where is the outcry coming from?
That's a great question.
I have a theory. I have a theory that these two angels were part of the divine council. And maybe the divine council is watching what's happening on the earth and counseling with God.
Okay? So the outcry could come from angels over particular jurisdictions, and they're saying it is bad down here. And I will say this, if you'll notice, if we're going to see in Abraham, he knows it is too, because he immediately goes into bargaining. So it's like, he's like, "Oh, okay, hold on a minute here." And we'll get to that in a minute. Go ahead.
No, so I was just thinking that this is not on it, but so everybody was pretty much not good in that town except maybe was it Lot? Is that what you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And his family.
It's going to come down to that.
Because I was going to say, well, maybe there were some good people, but then it
Well, that's-
comes
What's
down.
so awesome about this bargaining, I mean, can you imagine Abraham having the temerity to say to God, well, wait a minute, how about this, how about this,
Yeah.
how about this? Oh my gosh, you're bargaining with God?
Well, we got to get to that, because I think
Yeah.
there's a lot to that.
Yeah,
But maybe
how can there? I mean, there's good people in Memphis and there's bad. There's good people in Detroit.
Yeah.
How can like a town just be so terrible? Maybe it was like when Noah and the whole world was terrible.
Right.
But it's like how do you come to that?
Yeah, I know it. Well, so going back to your point, either it could be you know, when he meant all the people, it'd be like, it's like, well, just imagine if Memphis lost its mind. You'd be saying, man, the whole town of Memphis has just lost its mind. And pretty much all, but there'd be a few.
Yeah.
Or it could be Lot. The outcry was Lot. And maybe his immediate family. Could very well be that as well. Right?
I don't want to throw a lot underneath the bus, but I don't think he was a good guy.
Well, remember, Second Peter talks about Lot being tormented in his righteous soul, which, to your point, is like, Peter, we talking the same guy? You know the same guy, Lot? Lot, we know.
But look, if
Yeah.
would you move to a city you know it was
Oh, I know.
very
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
no sense.
I know it.
Yeah, I
Makes
want to
no
move to Las Vegas so I can go to the Strip every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And this is after he split. He said he split from Abraham, and he picked the better side.
Yes.
Or is this after?
He split, right, and went to pick the better side.
Yes, and
Then those
Gomorrah.
those 4 kings came and slapped on the 5 kings, including Sodom, took all of Sodom, all their goods, and took Lot with them. And then Lot went and rescued him,
Abraham.
and Abraham went and rescued him, and then Lot evidently went back.
Yeah, so
He was
he.
drawn to
Fool
it.
for the city,
All
podcast.
those lights.
Yeah.
Just a fool for the city.
Because he's very selfish. If he wanted his own, like I'll take first pick
Yeah.
instead of being like,
Yeah.
no, you take first pick.
Yeah.
blah, blah. You know, I think that was a downfall
Yeah.
for him, and it just kept going.
And I really think, too, not just taking first pick, but I do think that the authors kind of highlight the idea of city. Remember, Cain was the first city builder. I mean, there's a lot into that. And then Lot goes to the city. See, God calls Abraham out of the city. And then Lot's like, you know what? I'm going back. I'll go back to Vegas, man.
Yeah.
A nice party. But I'll be good, though, Lot. I'll be good.
But along those lines, to this day, most cities are not.
Yeah.
They become more ungodly.
Yeah.
The bigger that city is,
Right.
it's the worse it gets.
Yeah.
And when you get away, it seems a little better. So
Yeah. It
something
is.
to that.
It is interesting. It's not.
The
Yeah.
corruption.
It's not to say, you know, I guess we're not saying that if you live in the city, then you're a sinner. But
I'm not saying that
I know
at
you're
all.
not. But it is true. There is this kind of connection where, and I told Linda about this. I wondered if that was remember when you had the flood. And I kind of forget now how I came to this conclusion. But in other words, if you follow the line of Cain, and you notice that Cain, being the consummate sinner, right? What's he do? Well, he goes and builds a city. He's the first city builder. And by the way, if you go and look at all the other ancient religious myths, they're all based on that very same thing. The civilizer gods came down and taught the people how to grow crops, how to build cities, come together. Same thing as the Tower of Babel, right? They want to come together. It's like man's attempt now to try to, pull himself by his own bootstraps and to, and so what I'm getting at is that, so then a flood comes, and I wonder if what God was saying is that the inclination of man's heart is only evil, and his thoughts are only evil all the time, if that's not what he was getting at. Man is always trying to build himself his own castle, and to build, you're right. And if you think of it now, and that's what God was getting at, well, that's what we do. All of our cultures is basically godless now. We're trying to get along without him.
Look at how corrupt
Yeah.
Rome became.
Yeah. Well, even like the Tower of Babel is similar, right? They come together as a city, and God says, "Nope. I'm going to scatter your language, so you can't come together and do what you want to do."
The way I look at that, that's kind of interesting, is that I think the Lord put almost a pause on technology.
Yes.
Because they had one language, and he could see this was going south really quick. And when he did that, that just get a technology reset.
Well, seeing that, the reason why that book I'm reading, the reason why because, the ancients believed that we live in cycles, right? And that every eon, so in this case it'd be 2,160 years, you have a cataclysmic reset. Cataclysm comes, wipes everything out, sends everything back to zero. See, we already see at least two. We see the flood, right? Everything goes back to zero, start over again as children, right? Build it back up. And then you have the Tower of Babel, same thing. Wipes it, they try to get together, everything is ramping up. God says, no. And some of the ancients, they believe that happens. That's been happening all throughout. And it's kind of fast. And I only bring that up because if you're a believer in that, then time's up. We're in that time now. Yeah.
Third reset, right?
We're right in. If you believe in the cycles, then we're right at that time. Now, not all cataclysms are the same. In other words, sometimes they're not as bad, like the flood one. But the flood, right? It's kind of really fascinating. So if you hear talk about that, like a magnetic pole shift, you ever heard that?
Yeah.
Right? Or Nibiru, right? A renegade, a planet, right? So that's what they're talking about. And we'll see. Anyway, but how did I get into that? Now you got to help me get out of it, Mom. Help me. How did I?
It was the outcry is what we saw.
Oh, okay. But anyway, the outcry. Okay.
We weren't paying attention.
Now, so okay. So wait a minute. All right. So
I was
okay.
drawing blanks myself.
All right. So there's no getting out of that one. I just lost it. Camera just kind of went down my thing. 'Cause I'm reading other stuff, and so it's all blending in my head together. But I've noticed that most of y'all kind of said things like, and God knew that Abram was going to bargain with him. Why does the Lord specifically say, should I hide what I'm about to do? In other words, he's kind of saying, I'm not going to hide. I'm going to tell Abraham exactly what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Why does he want to let Abraham know?
It's his divine counsel that's with him. That's why he's saying that. He's asking the angels, the divine counsel.
But that's still, why does he want to tell Abraham?
Because he wants Abraham to bargain for Lot.
Okay, so you think the Lord wants him to bargain for Lot, to intercede?
Yes, to intercede.
It'd be kind of God kind of showing that I'm going to work through people.
Okay.
This is going to be,
Yeah.
maybe a time that I show that.
It's kind of fascinating. Yeah, okay. Now, he didn't have to, though, does he?
And he didn't have to go to Sodom to find out how it was either.
He knew.
He already knew, right?
But it's awesome to put it in the Bible that with this conversation back and forth, we know it was really, really bad.
Bad.
We couldn't find
Right.
nobody.
Yeah.
That's how bad it was. So.
But isn't it interesting that, well, the Lord could have just said, in other words, the Lord can do what he wants.
Yeah.
He doesn't need doesn't need Abraham. He could just go and save Lot. Tell Abraham later, hey, I saved Lot. I'm right. But he instead goes and he says to two of his angels, right? Shall I hide from Abraham? He goes, no, he's really saying, I'm coming here to tell Abraham, this is what I'm going to do ahead of time. Much in the same way as, shall I hide from my church what I'm about to do? No, I think I'm going to write the book of Revelation. I want them to know ahead of time. So that we can what?
Prepare.
Prepare, and what else?
Look for signs.
What about intercede? One of the things, if you read the book of Revelation closely, you'll notice that the angel will take the prayers in the bowl and throw it to the earth. Remember the souls that are underneath the altar? And they're saying, how long, Lord? And the Lord's saying, just a little while longer. You can basically look at the book of Revelation as being an answer to his saints, saying, when are you going to take care of it, right? So in other words, he's using the prayers of his people.
Right, and also, there's a verse, I was looking it up, I can't remember, you know that verse in, it's Jeremiah, I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord.
29:11.
29:11, but
yeah.
then right after that verse,
You seek me with all my...
then
Yeah.
you will call me and come and pray to me,
Yeah.
and I will listen to you, and you will seek me and find me when you search for me with your whole heart,
Yes.
and I will be found by you. So people like Abraham, who are seeking God,
Yeah.
he says you're going to find me. He wants to be found, and he
Yes.
wants that.
Yes.
And so
Absolutely.
whenever you're seeking,
Yeah.
he gives you information. You know, when you seek me with your whole heart,
Yeah.
he gives you things that he would give to just
Right.
the average Christian.
Yeah.
The one who's, you know, living on the fence.
Yeah.
He's going to give the information to the one who's truly seeking him.
But then also, and I want to add the other side, like what Josh brought up, God is going out of his way to bring Abraham into the mix.
Yeah.
Right? He's going out of his way to bring Abraham into the mix. And that's one thing. And so he could just do it himself, but no, he wants to bring his people in. And I think that's true for today too. And that is one of the means why we pray. If you want to get anything, read what's going on here and realize that, you know what? God really wants to hear from us, and he wants to act according to his people, which would kind of make sense why Jesus said, but when he comes, will he find faith on the earth? Almost like he's saying, but will there be anybody left who will actually be praying? That's one. But then the other side of the coin, and we'll get to it, God doesn't come directly out and tell Abraham what he wants him to do. In other words, he doesn't say, I want you to intercede for Lot, but I think you could say that the impression is he does want Abraham to intercede, which is why he doesn't get bothered by Abraham. So terrible it is showing my racism that I was kind of we're kind of raised, didn't realize it. I was gonna say Abraham Jewed him down. And we say that. That used to be something we used to say when we were back in our 70s. Now it's like I get shot. Yeah. And ironic because Abraham was going to be the first. Scratch that one too. I was admitting that culturally, being a Gen Xer, I mean we just had issues. We did. We've been broke of that now.
Praise the Lord.
Anyway, right? No, I thought the thing is, well, look, and Abraham, he is like the grandfather of the Jews. Saved myself on that one. Okay. All right. I'll tell you what. We'll read through this, and then we'll talk about it. There's this book that I read. It's really fascinating on this, actually. That kind of gives a little different slant of what's going on. So verse 22. So the men turned from there and went toward Sodom. But Abraham still stood before the Lord. Then Abraham drew near and said, will you indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked? So he kind of already knows the answer.
Yeah.
Ain't no need to go down there, Lord. It's like, when your parents, I'm going to go, I'm going to check your bedroom to see how it is. You already know. Mom, don't you want to go somewhere else?
You don't need to do that.
You already
It's
know.
fine. Don't go.
You already know it's a disaster, right? And of course the Lord does too, right? In fact, the language that Lord uses here, I want to go down and see, and investigate for myself. It's the same thing with the Tower of Babel, right? Let's go down and see if it's as bad as everything's cracked up to be, okay? Will you indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Will you then sweep away the place and not spare it for the 50 righteous who are in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to put the righteous to death with the wicked, so that the righteous fare as the wicked. Far be that from you. Now, the fact that Abraham is going to keep, to your point, he's going to keep going down, kind of seems to imply that Abraham doesn't think there's 50. There's a good chance there's not, right? So, but he's starting off at 50, right? We'll start at 50, but I got to get way lower.
You know what? Isn't that an interesting number he picked out?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, you would think it's, well, a few thousand, you know?
Yeah.
50?
50.
Let's hear what the Lord says. Oh, he's good with that one. Well, we got to go down further. I don't think there's 50 down there. Okay, anyway. So then, so far be from you, let's look
You know
at,
what's interesting? The way he talks to him about it, far be it from thee,
Yeah.
shall not the judge of all the earth deal justly?
Yeah.
He's like, what are you thinking? You're God. You can't do that.
yeah.
That's kind of like,
And we have some other ancient writings of some Hittite prayers, and kind of the same thing where, remember we talked about that everything is, you get your identity not through being an individual, but through your community, right? But then they also kind of remark, but it would be unfair if there were some good people to have them face the penalty of what others have done. And so,
yeah. But the way he's talking
Yeah.
about is what I'm saying.
yeah,
It would be kind of like what I would say is like, what are you thinking? You're God. You can't act like that.
right. It could be that, or, you know, it could be his way of kind of saying, like, he's more like, Lord, we know you. We know who you are. So you're not going to, you keep the, right? So for 50, if there was 50 good ones, you would spare the city, right? I think, you know, he wants a,
You want confirmation.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but anyways, who knows what, you know, we don't know exactly what's in his mind, but that's probably, and the Lord said, if I find at Sodom 50 righteous in the city, I will spare the whole place for their sake. And Abraham answered and said, behold, I have undertaken to speak to the Lord, I who am but dust and ashes. Suppose 5 of the 50 righteous are lacking. And you know, it's the way he says it, not 45, but like, imagine just 5 less. 5 less, 50. Yeah. So we got 50, take 5 away. Would 5 people make that much of a difference? Right? Will you destroy the righteous, right? The whole city for a lack of 5? And he said, I will not destroy it if I find 45 there. Again he spoke to him and said, suppose 40 are found. And by the way, I don't know for sure, but I've heard that some think maybe Abraham was a merchant or at one time. But if that is true, then he knows how to bargain. So he is haggling with the Lord, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Why
But
is
what-
he? Sorry.
I'm sorry. I think we're gonna have the same question. Why does he keep dropping down the numbers without? Was the Lord just saying?
Yeah.
How does he know to drop down?
Yeah.
And when he got to 10, did he think,
even Abraham realized.
Well, yeah,
I
and
didn't think that was covered.
yeah. Well, we're gonna hit that because there's a couple of things. Like, okay, so you stopped at 10, so you thought you had a pretty good shot at Lot, because it's. I think we're all kind of in agreement that he's thinking of Lot.
Why couldn't he have said, okay, can I get Lot and his family out?
That's what we want. That's what we want to.
That's who he cares
Well, that's
about.
why they just get the 50 out of there?
So basically, okay, I'll tell that this book that I read is really a fascinating book. And so his take is that the Lord wanted Abraham to intercede for Lot. That's what he wanted. That was one of the reasons why he came to Abraham, was that he wants Abraham to kind of get in there and intercede, like he'd want us to intercede for people that we love. But notice that Abraham doesn't do it all the way. He won't come out and say, what does he want? Maybe that's why the Lord is going with them. It's like, what do you really want, Lot? But he doesn't say it. Instead, he just keeps going down and down. And the contention of that book the contention of the book is that, one, he wanted Abraham to intercede for Lot, and he only went halfway. He didn't come out and say it. And then he also makes the contention that he believed what the Lord wanted Abraham to do was to intercede for Isaac. When he said, I'm going to, bring your son, your only son. And that's kind of a fascinating take. And so, in which Abraham did not do it. That's a little more dicey, the second, but this first one's fascinating. That makes sense to me. So what you just said is exactly what the Lord is looking for, and for reasons unknown, Abraham is kind of like trying to bargain it instead of just saying, look, Lot, can you save Lot? Which the Lord would have done.
Why does he care about everybody else?
What's that?
Why would he care about the whole other city? He doesn't even know that.
I don't think he does.
Yeah, but it doesn't make sense to bargain. Like, just say,
Yeah.
let's get my family.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
Made more sense.
it feels like he's feeling the Lord out. He's trying to feel him out. So instead of just coming out and asking him what you really want, it's kind of like us, maybe something we pray. There's things that we really want, but we don't want to say it because we may sound unpious or impious, right? So we say what we think the Lord wants to hear.
So your kind of theory is quit with just the fake prayers and just really say what you want, right? And,
I'll do that. I'll be praying. I go, look, Lord, I know what you want me to say, but truth of the matter is, I need some more money. What I really want is I want to go to Florida, Lord. And I figured out, and I'll say, Lord, if you don't want me there, then say it. But why lie? Just tell them where you are. And I do think that's what God was. That's why the Lord was not that's why he just kept going with it. Okay, all right, 45, no, 40, 35.
It almost sounds like an auctioneer.
Yeah.
Give me 33.
That's so
Try
true.
to reverse.
And you're not supposed to bargain with God. Because you lose.
No.
Well, and that's fine. Yeah, there's all kinds of messages on that. You want to bargain with the Lord.
And if you do, then you better uphold your end if he says it.
Better uphold your end on it. And it makes a lot of sense. I will say, though, the few instances where somebody's bargained with the Lord's went with it. I'm not saying what we should go and do. I'm just saying it's like people say things like, you don't ask a sign from the Lord. You don't do that, but Gideon did it.
Yeah.
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 That doesn't mean, what we would say, we don't make hard, fast doctrines out of these. Look, since Abraham did this, therefore, when you want something, you need to bargain with the Lord. You need to kind of go down. No, that's not the point. But
I think what is boiling down to is the Lord always wants from our true heart. He
Yes.
just wanted from his heart.
Yes.
Abraham just said, I'm going to open my heart. Lot's down.
Yeah.
Lord.
Yes.
Lot is there with
Yeah.
his family.
You wouldn't do that.
And I think too, and interesting is obviously the Lord does not need Abraham to intercede for Lot. He could just go save him, knowing that that's what Abraham wants, right? Obviously he knows that. But he wants Abraham to intercede, to stick up for him, to speak up for him, right? It's like he's teaching him something about this is what it means to be a priest. of the living God, like we are. When you're a priest of the living God, you intercede, you stand in the gap for people. And obviously there must be something to that, or the Lord wouldn't be asking us to do it. I think it's pretty profound, actually. And he's training Abraham, and if that book is right, it's really a pretty fascinating book. Well, and so instead he just kind of keeps going down. And why he stops at 10? Like, why didn't he stop? Why did he send a real big message? If you find 4, if you find Lot, his wife, his 2 daughters, all those deadbeat husbands, forget them. Just a 4.
Obviously, his wife wouldn't count
Yeah.
because she looked back.
Yeah.
I don't think she
Yeah.
would have been one of the 4.
Yeah. Well, if he knew, his wife, well, he would have won. He would have thought. But,
Initially, he would have.
Maybe she was just curious.
what if, I mean, I don't know, but what if the reason why Abraham will stop at 10, because he's not sure how many children Lot has. He wants to get them all.
Yeah.
How about 10?
Well,
Lot's
2
famous.
Lot's daughters may have married, they may have had grandchildren.
They did marry, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
maybe if he's not completely sure.
Yeah. But anyway, we don't know what's in Abraham's head. We can't say everything, but say what. But it sure seems like God does not have a problem with Abraham and what he's doing. Which is, he's running with him all the way on this. So anyway, let me see. Where are we at? Let's take up 29. Again, he spoke to him and said, "Suppose 40 are found there." He answered, "For the sake of 40, I will not do it." Then he said, "Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Suppose 30 are found there." He answered, "I will not do it if I find 30 there." He said, "Behold, I have undertaken to speak to the Lord. Suppose 20 are found there." He answered, "For the sake of 20, I will not destroy it." Then he said, "Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak again, but this once. Suppose 10 are found there." And he answered, "For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it." And the Lord went his way, and when he had finished speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place.
So Abraham must have thought there were 10.
And he must have thought that Lot
Was one of them.
was one of them, which means that he was thinking that Lot is one of the good ones. Interesting. Right? Because you think, if you really, that's what you're doing, you're kind of like, what if you find like 10 shaky ones? They're like, they're not as bad as these guys over here, but they're not as good as like my servants. Would you spare them? I don't know. Yeah, but for some reason, inexplicably, he won't come out and say, "Will you save Lot?"
Yeah.
I don't know what Abraham is thinking.
And there weren't 10 people there.
No.
There weren't even 10. And he
No.
didn't move on to what if there's 5? Or what if
Yeah.
there's only 3?
Yeah. But remember though, that he said, "Will you spare the whole city for 10?" Well, there wasn't 10, so he didn't spare the city.
Wasn't even 10.
Yeah.
Just took a lot.
But he did do either what Abraham wanted, or he did what he wanted Abraham to do. Don't you want me to get Lot out? Which is kind of also good, because if there's some truth to what we're talking about, that this is what the Lord wanted. The Lord wanted Abraham to intercede. Then it's good to know that the Lord will still do the right thing even when we fail and don't intercede like we should. Right? I mean, if the Lord didn't do anything unless we asked for it first, we'd all be in trouble, right?
Yes.
This world would be in trouble.
And I'm thankful for that because
Yeah.
prayer is tiring because it's spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful
Yeah.
that it's not all on me.
It's like it takes all our effort just to pray for us, huh?
Yeah, it takes all my effort.
By the time I get to anybody else, I'm so tired of praying for me. So he thinks, and everybody else, just bless them.
Just bless everyone.
Not just lump them. Family,
Yeah, yeah.
friends, church.
It is tiring.
It is.
It's warfare, and that's why your old camel knees, James, right, and praying with sweat and yeah, it's not easy, and you have the spiritual forces fighting against you.
The phone rings or
Phone ring.
yeah.
Do you remember at Ukipa Community, we had a prayer list on the back of the bulletins? And I used to pray that every night, and I made it about halfway through and I would fall asleep.
Yeah.
Every single night. So I finally realized that those people at the bottom of the list were not going to get prayed for unless I started at the bottom and worked up. So I reversed it and I started at the bottom
Yeah.
and started working up. And at least that way I got them covered too.
Mm.
But it would exhaust me.
How many names are on the list?
Probably 20.
Okay.
20 people in our church. And they would change,
Okay.
as needs were met and then new needs came in.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would pray that every night. I'd lay in bed and I know that prayer. I knew that prayer list by heart. And it was tiring, but it was also comforting, speaking to God. And
Mhm.
I'd go to sleep. I'd fall asleep. I never had any problem.
If I add you to my list, I kick somebody off.
Oh, yeah.
You're always on it. Don't worry.
Well, I think it's better to have some names that people that certain people that you kind of pray for, and
Yeah. Yep.
Paul always talked about he prayed for all these people that he in the churches that he came across, and yeah, a lot of
There's not enough hours in the day to be able to bring everybody that I would want for the Lord.
So okay, so we got hospitality with Abraham actually having a meal with the Lord and two angels, right? Which we kind of saw that at the end. It's kind of a little inconspicuous, but you could right there at verse 22. So the men, notice how he refers to the men. He calls them the men. We know them to be angels now, but they also look just like men, right? And they go down to Sodom. So to your point, the divine council's leaving, but the Lord is now going to hang out with Abraham,
That's cool.
right? And Abraham's going to have a talk right after dinner, and we know how much Abraham loved Lot because he already went after him earlier with the 318 trained men.
And he brought him with him when
He
God
brought
told
him with
not to
him.
bring
Yeah.
Family.
So Abraham's a good man,
Yeah.
Who?
I think he thought of Lot kind of a son.
like a son,
It's adopted son.
Yeah.
adopted
Yeah.
son.
Yeah.
He fights for them. He prays over them. Right? I mean, so we see there are areas where he obviously needs work like us, but
Well, thankfully he had Abraham, because if Lot had been to his own devices,
Oh my.
he might not have made out so well.
that's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Yeah. Who knows where he would be without,
Maybe it's part of that verse, where you and your household
Yes.
will be saved.
yeah. Yeah.
Because they're under your authority, or they get a blessing because they're under your
Right.
authority.
Right. And we could also see, and part of that blessing, like Lot's getting, is physical intervention by Abraham, sometimes, right? With bringing him with him, bringing him under the covenant, and then going out and help, and then spiritual intervention, praying, asking the Lord, right? Randy and him. Okay, so Let's see what Randy and Heather have to say. Hold on, one sec. Hi, please remember Heather's daughter Hope in your prayers. Tonight was a tough visit. She and Heather could really benefit from prayers.
She told me today, she came over for a few minutes. She said that yesterday's conversation on the phone was not good. So I was praying on the way over here that maybe their face-to-face would be better. But
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Definitely prayer there. We'll close out prayer on that. Okay. So what's the big takeaway that you would get from this?
Guess to me, it's like God doesn't need us for anything, but He wants us to engage with
Yeah.
Him, right?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And he
Yeah.
doesn't get upset
Mm-mm.
when we bargain.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
I mean, because Abraham was bargaining, most definitely.
And He doesn't want us to just like reach out like a little bit, like
Right.
with everything, right?
Yep.
Like in Proverbs where it talks about, seek me with
Yes.
silver or gold, and
Yeah. Yeah.
He wants us to be honest with him,
Wants to be
Yeah.
honest.
sincere from the heart.
Yeah. That's what he wants, huh?
Honesty.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when he says something's going to happen, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Even if the time is delayed,
Yeah.
he's made a promise. You might not think he's taken a long time, but
And he says, shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do? And then he said, seeing that Abraham, he's surely going to become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth should be blessed in him. So I'm going to include him in my covenant and my plans, right? And he says, for I have chosen him, that he may command his children and his household after him, to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice, so that the Lord may bring to Abraham what he has promised him. There's this kind of reciprocal relationship that the Lord is like, he's bringing Abraham in, like he does with us, into his covenant, makes known to us the mystery of his will, I think it says in Ephesians. He's letting us know, not everything, we couldn't handle it, but he's letting, and like what you brought out, when you draw to him, the closer you draw to him, the more he's going to give you. He wants to share with us. It's not like, I don't want to tell you. He wants to share with us. And he wanted to tell Abraham, and again, I guess I can't say I could prove that, but it is kind of fascinating the fact that Abraham knew right away what was happening. And Abraham had kind of an odd way of going about it. In fact, he doesn't really come out and say, Lot, I want you to save Lot, but it's pretty obvious that's what he wants, and the Lord knows it's what he wants.
Kind of surprising that he.
Yeah. But he is interceding for Lot. So, got to give him at least half credit.
Okay. We'll give it half credit.
and
We'll
it's
give it-
interesting that we kind of touched on this. You touched on it, but God, who needs nobody, has chosen to use his angels or his divine counsel.
Yeah.
To help him make decisions.
Yeah.
And then he uses people to help him make decisions.
Yeah.
Obviously God doesn't need us, but he chooses to use. He
Yeah.
chose to use angels. He chose to use his sons. Now, children of God are now the sons of God, the divine counsel now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he doesn't need us, but he wants to use us, and he wants us to be part of it.
Right. Yeah. And then on that, it's kind of hard to... So, I can't say exactly what Abraham was trying to do. Well, we know what ultimately he seemed like he was trying to do, but the way he was going about it, well, I don't know if there's a lesson there in that. Because he was going about the way he was, because the fact of the matter is, he only got the 10. And that wasn't enough. You know? So he didn't get that part of the prayer answered, but he got what he really wanted. In other words, that the city was not spared because there was not 10 righteous people in it. But then by the grace of God, he did do what... Because the Lord is just. And he's not going to let
And he's-
Lot go down.
And he's merciful to Abraham.
And that, yeah, merciful to Abraham for one. But then that kind of goes back to what Monty was bringing up. Because Lot is shady. So did God save Lot because Lot is not that shady? Or is it because of he's Abraham's family?
He falls under this umbrella just like all his servants and slaves and everybody. So Lot falls under that protection.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Lot was probably circumcised too.
Mm.
I'm assuming that happened to
That's a
him.
good
But
point.
then in the New Testament it says that Lot was righteous. That
Peter
he was
brings that
tormented.
up.
That he
Peter
was
brought-
tormented.
Yeah.
It does bring that up.
Maybe he got better in his old age. I mean,
That's actually I was kind of thinking maybe that. I mean,
you get wiser.
It's possible, you know,
His wife is the one that looked back. Maybe he was following her.
yeah. And maybe he did keep himself clean from, even though he was he put himself in a bad spot. Well, he lost a wife over it, because that idea of looking back, I guess, it's not necessarily that she just simply turned around. That she went back to the city. She,
Oh, really?
she
I
had,
thought she just turned around. Maybe the Bible stories when I was a kid.
well, no,
I
it does
remember-
kind of allude that, but reading one of the commentary, it goes, actually, you know, looking at the language and the commands, it could be
Yeah.
more like she kind of went back and got, which, so, and doesn't that happen so a lot of times, like I remember I used to tell some friends of mine, I go, you know, yeah, you got involved with drugs or something, you know, and you got out of it, but your little brother, he falls into the same trap and he doesn't come out of it. Not everybody does. That's why when you play that game,
It's a dangerous game.
dangerous. And
It seemed like his heart was always going towards something.
yeah, oh yeah. Well, he kept going
Taken off,
back.
dragged off, and then right to it.
And the Bible don't tell us, like, what was it, bro? Why did you?
This place looked like Vegas.
Yeah. Huh.
The glitz and glam
Yeah.
of the city.
Yeah.
You had been there, Jim.
Yeah.
It was all
Food
happening.
buffets were awesome.
Yeah.
They had
Yeah.
lobster, shrimp.
Yeah, so we'll get to that one next week, but I guess it's comforting to know that God rescues Lot. Fortunately, God doesn't rescue the perfect. Don't look. You got to edit that out. Put like a line.
No
Put a
worries.
line.
No worries.
Put a line. All right.
That's funny. The look.
Well, that's what Linda does to me. What's going on? Oh, they'll feel me. Oh, my goodness. All right. Sit up straight, Jim. Chew with your mouth closed. Pull your shirt down. All right.